I'm 13 Disciple, and this is Coach's Corner. Welcome back, everybody. Today we have L01 in his Archer, and we are playing on steps, specifically Encounter on steps. So, let's start the match like we always do with a little breakdown of the team lineup. Okay, so we only have one artillery, but it is very quick firing, and we do have an open top tank destroyer. So if we get drilled by artillery, that could end our game pretty fast. Apart from that, we have a few heavies. None of them really are going to require gold rounds, except for maybe the Churchill, depending on how he's angled. Probably want gold for the Su-100Y, also depending on how he's angled. In terms of tank destroyers, we have an Su-100Y, an AT-2, and a Stug. I tend to put tank destroyers into two categories. The first being your sniping, camo, stay out of the way, doesn't want to be in the fight type of tank destroyer. And then I have the assault tank destroyer, wants to be up in the face and on top of their enemies using their armor. So the AT-2 would definitely fall into the assault category with relatively strong armor for its tier. Whereas the Su-100Y and the Stug 3 I would probably put closer to the sniping category, although both of their guns can be relatively derpy and sometimes you want to be up close. That said, the Archer is also in that sniping category. Outside of that, we have two light tanks to worry about. We got a T-37 and a Chaffee that could be spotting us. And we got a handful of mediums. So that EZ2 is going to need gold rounds for sure. The Jumbo has very strong hull armor, and depending on which turret he's running, he might also have really good turret armor. So if we end up running into him, we'll call it as we see it. All right, with that out of the way, let's take a look at the mini-map. This is Encounter on steps, and there's really two places people go on steps to begin with, and that would be they take this flank, or they take this flank. So generally what happens on Encounter, one team wins the cap area, and then they begin the timer, and then whoever is down here, either winning or losing, sometimes will have to rush across to try and get resets. That being said, generally speaking, I typically fight over cap, but there is some mistakes that are easily made on cap, especially when there's two or more artillery on the enemy team. When you are on the cap circle and cap timer is ticking down, and there's a lot of tanks over here, sometimes you'll never stand a chance at capping because artillery will sit in the back here or sit in the back over here, and they'll just blind fire this area closest to the ridge line, and they'll just get resets for days, and the cap pressure doesn't matter if you just keep getting reset. Eventually, the cap pressure will pull some of these campers out of this area, or coincidentally on this side too. It'll pull them into the cap circle to fight. Typically, you want to keep cap pressure on if you know you're losing this side. And if you are losing this side, you want to make sure that you don't get reset on the cap. So you want to leave 3 on, 2 or 3 on, and push the rest through. Encounter timer is quite a bit longer, so 1 won't cut it for pressure. So typically in a very, very slow tank, if I'm feeling relatively bored and I want to get into the fight quick, I will, go this way. But generally, I would say 70 to 80% of the time, I like to fight over the objective, because if my team wins or loses the objective, I either run out of time to do things, or the timer gets such that I have to make really bad plays driving across the middle of the map to try and get resets. All right, that said, let's talk about me being a tank destroyer in the Archer, what I would do. So I would probably set up early in a bush, probably around this rock or this rock here. This rock might be too late. There's a couple areas, but the biggest one is this gap in here. You can catch tanks crossing this way in this gap. Going out here might take too long, so you might want to set up here or here, anywhere that you can find a relatively decent bush to put your gun behind. And then pre-aim this crossing here and try and get damage on the tanks that are going for cap. The more damage you can get on tanks going for cap, the more likely your team is to win the cap encounter over here. After that, I would probably look to set up right here next to this rock in A8. There's a really strong sniping position there. Alternative would be up next to this rock here. I like the rocks in these two locations because they offer hard cover and concealment. There's bushes right in front that go down this way that offer great concealment over here. And there's a tree and some bushes next to this rock that offer concealment. So you have great camo and you have hard cover you can get behind in the event that you're spotted. Sometimes you can get a little cheeky up here depending on how deep your team is into these bushes. You can also play these bushes, but you won't really have an angle this way. You'll be looking at damage up here is where you'll be looking. All right, so I think that's enough theory. Let's get into the match here and see how this goes for our friend EL01. If any of you are interested in having your replay featured on Coach's Corner, in the description will be a link to my Discord, and you want to hop into the hashtag Coach's Corner channel. In there are the instructions and kind of guide on the sorts of replays that I look for. And yeah, submit it there and maybe you'll get featured. Fun fact for anyone that wasn't aware, the Archer is like 3 times faster in reverse than it is forward because the gun is actually mounted in reverse on the chassis of this vehicle. So pretty much anywhere you're going to be going in reverse, as L01 here is demonstrating. So we see the BDRG-1 went south. We still have 3 heavies and an M1A1 in the, or M4A1 in the south, so I'm not too worried about him just yet. We have an SU-100Y crossing, the VK-3001H, and those are their slower tanks, so we've already missed out on most of the crossing damage that we could have potentially been shooting at. But it looks like we're still going to set up to try and get some damage in the crossing. Turn the boat around. All right. I see we're setting up for some damage. P40. Oh boy. Do you have dynamic camera turned on? Oh, we might have to have a talk about that. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's definitely dynamic camera. Okay, I'm going to pause it right here real quick. So on the screen, I'm going to put together a little video right now. Here we are moving with dynamic camera on and off. And you can see the camera shakes when you hit objects. Here you'll see shooting with dynamic camera on and off, and you'll see the gun shakes when you fire. I find that super disorienting when I'm trying to aim shots. If it's something, I mean, if it's something guys enjoy, more power to you, definitely turn it on. But back to our replay here, if you wanted to see where the setting is, you go in here. And it is right here, dynamic camera. It'll be on for the remainder of this replay because it's part of the replay, but turn that guy off if you find that camera shake disorienting like I do. If you aren't sure, I suggest turning it off and just seeing how it plays for a few matches and then turn it back on and then make a judgment call there. So we did have some shots of opportunity there. We kind of missed them, but that's all right. It's a long range, they're low percentage shots to begin with. I see our platoon mate has gone down to the area that I really like to snipe at. Maybe we'll free camera over there in a second. Actually, let's do that right now. Let me pause this, and we will go free roam on this camera here. And we'll jump on over to our platoon mate in their Archer. Same tank, look at that. Okay, so I would say he's up just a touch too far. So you have this bush right here, which provides camo like here, and then these bushes here provide camo out that way. So when you fire your gun, any bush that is translucent or transparent, depending on how you have your settings set up, they will not provide a camo bonus after you fire. Any bush that is opaque will continue to provide a camo bonus after firing. So what you want to do is actually put your tank into this cubby right here as far back as possible. You have to be careful because once they realize you're there, they may blind fire this area, but this is where you want to be in this back corner because that keeps all of these bushes in this area, especially down here. Those will all be opaque and you'll get the camo bonus even after firing. So pretty much that is a really strong position because down here, we can get right behind his gun here and then kind of zoom up. So what this gives you is a great line of fire in this area. You can hit any tank that comes around this ridge here. Anything that pokes here, you'll have shots at. Anything that comes up here, you'll have shots at. And anything in the middle, you'll have shots at. Depending on where your red line is down here, sometimes you won't be able to get shots up here. Sometimes you can get blind fire damage on tank destroyers that get spotted on that opposing hill at the very top. So anyways, that's kind of the good position there. That's how you kind of play that position as well. So hope you found that informative. Let's keep rolling here. We lost our P43. It looks like they've got a lot of tanks on cap. Our T14 decided to go towards cap. That leaves our M4A1 and OI EXP alone against the BDRG-1 and the Churchill. Which means a vast majority of their team are also getting onto the cap area. So one thing I want to point out is we started to move, and that's good. So what I would say to change up your play to maybe make it a little more efficient in this particular map and situation, I would set up sooner so you can get crossfire sooner. And once there's no one else in this area, once they've all moved on, there's no reason to stay on this ledge, okay? Usually either once somebody wins this side or this side, once one of those sides are lost or close to being lost, is when tanks start rolling up this middle road. But it doesn't happen until later in the match. So sitting up here with your gun not being active is a detriment to your team unless there's somebody out here active spotting the opposing tank destroyers that might be over here or in here. Otherwise, relocate. I would say go next to the Hellcat, go next to the M4A1, go next to your Archer buddy. Anywhere over there to help provide overwatching fire over here is going to be helpful for your team. So I'd say you're making the right choice. You're just maybe a little bit late on it. Again, going in reverse, as is the Archer way. We're setting up in this bush and next to the M4A1. Looks like we've got a VK we can maybe hit. Oh yeah, definitely. That's all right. We probably could have spent a little more time letting the reticle settle there. Like, that was perfect. Letting the reticle settle all the way was probably the right call. That's all right. We still did damage. We got a VK H out of the game. Everything was good there. Solid play right there. The T-37 looks like he's getting out. I'm just watching the mini-map to try and see. Okay, so I wanted to show you something here. I'm watching the mini-map. Anytime I don't have anything to shoot at out here, I'm looking here. Okay, and what do we see? I see 3 tanks and 1. This OI EXP is not going to last very long. Your M44 is going to be totally exposed, and you're going to lose this whole side of the map. So something needs to happen. Either your team needs to get pressure hard and take the cap away from them, or we need to set up to receive this push here. So what I would probably be doing right now, even though they have cap pressure, they have tanks down here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tanks that could potentially get in here and help reset. You also have your M44. I would actually go where the M44 is. There's some really great bushes right there that you can get set up in and watch this crossing. Because once this OI goes down, these 3 tanks, usually one will come up here to try and cut off artillery, right? and then they'll either come on the inside of this ridge that way, or they'll go on the outside of this ridge that way. And you want to be set up to prevent this from flanking your guys that are trying to damage this area. Now, a little free advice for your M44, get out. He's way too exposed right now. Again, this OI isn't going to last very long. The M44 is very mobile. He has plenty of time to jet down into here, like your A7 area would be the safest. Anywhere down in this back alley will still give him shots over here and still give him shots over here. Especially if you trade places with him, you will then have a reasonable amount of vision in this area to provide support as they roll into and through where you spawned. All right, let's keep watching. All right, this is looking actually pretty good for your team on this cap. You still have a full health Churchill and a T-3045M, which could really exert a good amount of dominance in this area. I see a T-37 coming through. I would focus the T-37 because he's their eyes. There you go. That's good target focus there. I can't believe you even hit that shot, a 1 damage kill. Okay, the AT-2 is going to be really hard to pen. I would load gold for that particular target, which you just changed to gold rounds. Excellent move. This is all good stuff. It's becoming almost too late to make the play at A3 though. Your OI is still trying to keep them off for as long as possible. Your AT-2 is toast. We definitely can take cap with what's left. We got a KV-2, a T-3045M. We still have a full health Hellcat. That Hellcat could also support us if we take that A3 bush. We're relocating. We're thinking we might push up next to our buddy and his archer over there. Oh, we've changed our mind. We are going to go help the M44 stay alive. Not a bad call. You've recognized that Cap is going to keep having pressure your team. Oh, your buddy and his archer just got blown up. That's a bummer. RIP, guys. RIP. I definitely see us relocating to try and help get damage on this crossing. Once your team has overwhelmed their cap and gets the pressure on, all these heavies way over here have to take the quickest route possible to try and get resets. That Stug's been gone for a while. Oh, there he is. There's the Stug. We're turning around. Oh man, if we had just a little, yeah, okay. We were close. So I just want to point out, if instead of going off this hill towards the 8 line and then turning around, if we had just gone straight from that hill over here, you would have had shots on this Stug approaching, okay? It's all about timing, and I know it's really hard to read these plays earlier and earlier, but the sooner you recognize these plays and the sooner you get your body over there, the better off you'll be. So this Stug is probably going to roll up here and get on your M44's butt. Your M44 is still mobile. He might be able to get out if he's paying attention, which I doubt because he still hasn't left already. But if you had gotten into this position a little bit sooner, you might have been able to kill the Stug before he got behind this hill, okay? And one thing else I want to point out, in this position, you're still exposed to everybody on this ridge, which would be the Churchill and possibly the BDR who hasn't been spotted in a while. So what I would maybe think about doing is moving forward up into this area, onto this rail to try and keep these cars between you and him. Always be thinking about the angles of fire that you're exposed to whenever you're trying to make plays like this, because if you can eliminate one of those angles of fire, you have much better odds at making good trades. This is good. You're driving forward. That's exactly what I recommended. Although you may not have a shot on the Stug anymore. Here he goes after your artillery. Amen. I can't believe you had the accuracy to make that shell. And the Churchill just misses you. Okay, so I would say we know where the Churchill is. The BDR-G1 is probably in the middle of crossing right now. So yeah, you can go up into those bushes and try and set up for the Churchill. But he knows where you are. He's not going to try and drive at you because you're going to be really hard to spot once you're into these bushes. And you guys have 1 minute of cap pressure going. My guess is he's not going to waste any time trying to come after you. He's going to go straight to the cap. And because he knows where you are, he's probably going to take the inside ridge. Smartly, he's probably going to go through here on the other side of that ridge. So you might have shots in this area, but otherwise you won't have them at all. Set up, looking for him. There's still a jumbo that could get resets. Looks like the T-3045M is flanking the jumbo. Okay, at this point, I'm just pausing it here. At this point, I definitely would have driven off. You set up your binocs. They aren't giving you a ton of view range down here, but they're giving you enough that you should have spotted this crossing by now, which means the Churchill has already gotten through here. He's probably somewhere in this field over here. So what I would have done is maybe at the 40-second mark or so, you guys have very little time for them to get resets. This jumbo is probably going to die soon because he's being flanked. This BDR has been gone for a long time. My guess is he's made a beeline over here. And this Churchill we did not spot. My guess is he's crossed this way somewhere down here. So at this point in time, I would have driven off and set up in one of these bushes over here for some bush sniping. You know, spot, roll back until the bush is opaque, and then fire. Yeah, so now they have to be heading towards cap. Now would also be a good time to jump because you know the jumbo is dead. And even if you die trying to get damage on the Churchill or BDRG-1, at least you've sacrificed your hit points to try and get a little bit more damage out of the game. BDRG-1 is now brawling the T-3045. We've got 10 seconds, so you're probably just not going to have enough time to set up for shots at this point. Which is okay. You still screened the cap, just not as deeply as you maybe should have. Shoot in the air to try and give yourself a speed boost. And there's the cap. So yeah, that Churchill was probably somewhere in this field pretty deep, especially if the T-3045M didn't spot him. So anyways, guys, L01, thank you so much for submitting this replay. Hopefully you got a few tips and tricks on playing tank destroyers. The one thing about this type of tank destroyer play is you always want to be set up in a position where you can punish people that are going in on your team, but not so close that you're going to be outspotted and damaged before your frontline allies take damage. So it's a really hard balancing act. A lot of people will just redline it until all their team is dead. That's the wrong way to play it. The best thing to do is to probably be as close as possible while still being safe and able to get damage, okay? You want to be as safe as possible while also providing support fire to your allies. So that's really the sort of key lesson on fragile tank destroyers like this one. Anyways, thank you so much for sending this replay, and we'll catch you on the next Coach's Corner. See you guys.